Are there any other topics you guys would like to cover? How are you guys doing?
I'm okay. I was watching like the news last night to kind of see everything that would be going on, and it was just like crazy. There's like riots from coast to coast, and like, yeah, it's just like it's crazy, but I think it's time for something to happen.
Yeah, same here. I know all my friends are like on different pages. One of my friends is like, I don't understand why we can't say all lives matter. And I was like, well, we're not, when you're saying Black Lives Matter, you're not saying everybody else doesn't matter. We're just saying right now, like, we need to focus on this one thing. And by saying all lives matter, you kind of, throw that to the side. So yeah, I've just been trying to see where all my friends are with their opinions and trying to make sure they are okay with sharing how they feel. Because some of them were like, I don't know if I could share this because all that, and they're like, oh, I feel like it's my responsibility to post this stuff, but I don't know what to post or how to post, and to try not to offend anyone. So that's where I've been at.
Yeah, it's pretty, I can only imagine, like, if I'm tired of like trying to explain, and some people just don't want to hear it, it's hard, but that doesn't mean we give up. Thank you for like having those tough conversations with your friends. The way I view it is the people who are privileged more because of their skin color, the allies should be the ones having those tough conversations, because we don't have to deal with that like every single day, like it's, yeah, I am privileged, and it's just, that's just how it should be. I think our allies should be out there, having these conversations.
Yeah, I also watched this video of this woman giving a speech about how it's not your responsibility to inform everybody what's happening, to show that what they're thinking is wrong. She was talking about how, like, we have Google, we have the internet, we have books, people can educate themselves. We shouldn't be putting this burden of this great responsibility to talk to other people, and it's okay to like not talk about it. It's okay to not constantly be there. But yeah, I think it is important to, like, if you can, to talk to other people, because there are people who don't know what to think or don't know how to think. And I think we should be having those conversations with everybody. I know my parents, we don't really usually talk because of the language barrier, but this has also like affected them and how they see the world. So we've been having those conversations about what's going on and why they're confused. They're like, this person didn't do anything. Why is this happening? And I'm like, well, that's the thing. That's the question. This person was suspected of forging a check, and that led to the end of his life, and he didn't deserve that. And my parents like, oh, but this is America. And I'm like, yeah, just because it's different from Africa and might be like, we have more freedoms here and more rights, it doesn't mean it's like perfect. It doesn't mean like everything's gone. Just because slavery ended doesn't mean, we're in this whole new era of like perfectness,
Yeah, I definitely agree. And that's something that like a lot of people need to realize, is a lot of people believe that like because it appears that we have like improved a society, that like there's nothing else that needs to be done, when there's still so much work that needs to be done, and we can't just stop just because there's not like open segregation, or there's not like, it doesn't appear there. It's still very much there. It's just hidden, and like it's in different names and forms.
I also think this virus really brought it out more. Mostly in the beginning, when people were attacking Asians and making fun of them and saying all these racial things. I feel like when these big events happen, these bad things happen, we start seeing people's true natures. We start seeing how people actually feel. But on our day-to-day, when, just a normal day, you don't see this stuff. But then these big events happen, and then you're like, wow, we have like big issues that we're not talking about, that we're not addressing.
How do you guys deal with like friends, or I don't know if you guys have like white people or lighter skinned people in your family that like are oblivious to what's going on or don't want to see what's going on and promote the all lives matter or blue lives matter stuff? Like, how do you deal with that, like when they don't want to hear it? Do you just move on? Because for me personally, it hurts deeply, because when Standing Rock was happening, and I would talk to my family about it, who are indigenous, who are Native American, but lighter complected. They're like, oh, well, we need oil for this, we need oil for that. Like those people need to just give up the fight, or like, like they're not doing any good out there. And I'm seeing that again, but with in a different structure. I mean, same thing, same internalized racism and shit like that, but it just transferred over when another Black life is lost, and it's just draining. How do you guys deal with family who don't want to hear it? Do you guys just
I feel like the only reason why people can say that, like, those type of things, like question why people are even out there, is because they don't have to deal with the problem. Like, they have the privilege to ignore it, and so they have the privilege to say, like, okay, like, they don't need to be doing all of this, like, their cause isn't helping anything, because they don't understand like the scale of the problem. They see this as just like one single case where a cop was acting bad, but they don't understand that this is a systematic issue, and it's like just taking this case to court, or just like putting a band-aid on this one case is not going to solve the entire issue, because it's a deep-rooted issue. And so the only way to truly change the issue is like true, like, I don't know, like making the country really see, and like just doing something that they can ignore is not going to help the problem. And so that's, a lot of people want to have the privilege, like they want to continue ignoring the problem, and they realize they can't now. And so that's why they're so against it, because the problem is in their faces. Like, they have no choice but to pay attention to it now.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. I saw this Facebook post where this woman had a protest sign that says, I have a Black husband and I have a Black daughter. What if they're next? That's why I'm here to protect their lives. And then that made me think, like, would she still be there if she didn't have a Black husband or a Black daughter? Because I think a lot of people, they aren't there for the issues until they experience it, or if the issue involves them or their family members or something someone they care about. Which I try to like be aware of other people's problems and try to be aware of the things that they go through, because even though I might not personally face those issues, it doesn't mean they don't exist, that they don't hurt, that they I think again with the privilege thing, if your life is nice and you don't have to worry about these issues, and you can easily just change the channel and watch something else, why people don't understand why be concerned or worried about it until like it involves them, which I think we need to change. I think America focuses a lot on the individual and being the best self, but we also need to focus about being the best as a group and building our relationships with each other and empowering each other, rather than one person winning the race. We could have everybody win the race.
Like, I wish I could drill that into these people's heads. Like, we need to unite, like I'm seeing so many Hispanics on my timeline saying, oh, well, would they be out there? Like, nobody riots for the children in cages. And I'm saying, like, you're not even out here, like that's just like a cop out. Like, we would be out there with you. The right people would be out there with you, like burning shit down, making these changes, and we, like, I don't under, it's, how do we unite? How do you guys think we unite? And if this conversation is a drain, if you would prefer me to come up with these answers elsewhere, please let me know, okay? I don't want to be a drain on, yeah.
I really like, I also have the same issue. I've heard people be like, okay, Black Lives Matters is an issue, but how about these other races and these other people who are facing the same issues? How about the LGBTQ community? How about when the coronavirus hit and people were attacking Asians? How about Native Americans and their issues? Like, how we're not striking and writing against all these other people? And I think, yeah, some people maybe are just confused on what we're doing, and they're like, why are we always focusing on this one particular race? Why can't we also write for other people? And sometimes, like, I don't know what to say. Like, yeah, well, every race has issues. I think our whole society, I think there's so many issues that we have to, like, fix, but it's not something that's going to be fixed overnight. The Black Lives Matter is something that's going to take a while to fix. It's something like, when people were talking about changing or like rebuilding the United States and like reconstructing everything, I think that will also involve, I lost my train of thought. But like, if we if we get rid of these systematic changes that get Black people killed by police cops, it's not only a win for them, not only a win for their lives, but that also protects other people's lives, other races' lives. And that leads to other conversations about other people too. So it's not like, okay, there's this big issue, we're gonna fix this and then we're done. It's like, okay, there's this big issue, and now we're also realizing these other issues with it.
Yeah, and I definitely think that these are important conversations to have. And yeah, I feel like a lot of people are trying to like, they don't understand the severity of the problem, and so they're kind of trying to find like all these excuses for why like it doesn't need to be taken to these extremes. But I hear a lot of people talk about how like literally a band-aid was just put on the problem of like the racism in this country, and it's like become infected, and a lot of people are like getting tired of it. And like, while every group in this country is oppressed in some way, there are some that are more oppressed than others. And like Black people in this country were the only ones that were enslaved for 400 years, and like still have not gotten any type of like acknowledgement for the fact that they started off like at a disadvantage in this country, and like they're still like seen as a threat because of the color of their skin, and like it's something that Black people cannot change or hide. And so that's something that a lot of people are refusing to address.
It pains me that so many people live in denial just because they don't want to address their internal, like their own bigotry, their own bias. It's honestly sad. But I think we start with young people, people our age who are more open-minded, who are more willing to see it, and of course people who live it, they already know. And you're right, Google's a thing. People can easily learn something just by a Google search, and that needs to happen. But I definitely think that it starts with younger generations. I also think that we should definitely post this. This is a very helpful conversation. I know Clark wanted to be a part of this so that we could talk about white privilege, and that could be another video. But I think this is also very helpful.
Also with this, I've learned about like the importance of diversity. Me and my friend were talking about how everybody has different experiences and everybody has different values of what they think is right or wrong. And I think that's why we need more diverse like leadership. We need everyone from every different background who has experienced different things, so that way if we come together, it's a stronger idea, stronger argument, a stronger, like thing that we're doing. And I also watched this podcast, which connects back to what you were saying about starting with the young people, how young people are more open-minded. The podcast was talking about how young people always look for something new to do. They venture out, they try new music, they try new food, they try to meet new people, they try to just look at the world a different way. But as you get older, you kind of start to settle down. You start to like, okay, I'm gonna just listen to the same music, watch the same TV shows, watch, all of this, because you're less likely to take risks when you're older. So I think it's important to start with younger people. And then when you have your family, some people starts with family too. Like if you have like your daughter who's talking all this stuff and is changing the way you're seeing your life, you're also gonna eventually adopt those same values.
Oops. I didn't realize I was unmuted. Oh, yeah, unmuted. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. So I guess with family, it's important to continue those conversations as well, because you can't change who you're related to. And I've already I know this is kind of left field, but I try to live like a vegan lifestyle. I'm less violent lifestyle, and when I've been slacking lately. I know I have, but anyways, when I first started, my mom was like totally against it. She's like, you need me, like there's no way that I could go without me, and now 5 years later, she's actually vegan. So yeah, what you're saying does definitely ring true and is a fact. So I think, but with racism and everything, privilege. Hold on, my phone. Privilege, like I think it takes deeper conversations than, of course, veganism. It was just one example, and but even with that, with my own mother, who grew up in a different time, like she realizes different things because me and my brothers freaking drill it into her, like we don't shut up about it. And now to put that on a larger scale with even like my husband's family, who is predominantly white, and they don't like hearing what I have to say. I know that for a fact. But still having those tough conversations is very important. Yeah, so thank you guys for inspiring me. Like this conversation is giving me life. I understand. I don't know, just stuff is draining.
Thank you also, because like I know it's not easy to always stand up for what is right, but it's important. And so it's important to have people like you that aren't scared of speaking out and going to these protests and doing what is and saying what is right and speaking up to people that may not agree.
And just to clarify, yesterday when I messaged you guys, letting you guys know what I was doing, that by no means is asking for some sort of ego stroke. That's just what I expect from my family and other allies. So that's why these conversations are important. I know that when something is coming from my mouth, it's more palatable to certain people, and so that's in part a privilege. So if you guys are comfortable with sharing this video, this is going to go to every single one of my family members and freaking every single social media platform and YouTube. And I think, like I said, like you guys said as well, it starts with young people and also goes from there. And now I'm rambling a little bit. Thank you guys for being patient with me. You guys are amazing.
You are too. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys are also very amazing.
And inspiring.
Yeah.
We're kind of like the Three Musketeers. Is that this? We need to come up with something better. Like if you think of it, like all of the threes that you think of, like the pairs of threes, like it's like the Three Stooges or the Three Musketeers or like are there any others? Like what's the female version, you know?
I was gonna say Powerpuff Girls, but I don't know.
Okay, yeah, Powerpuff.
I'm down with that.
Okay.
What time is it? Oh, it's 8:35. We still have time. My anthropology class, we were talking about what's the called? We're talking about how people have to be more aware of people's cultural backgrounds and how they were raised. I think that's one of the reasons I'm not too like outspoken or too loud, because I also understand where people are coming from. But that's not excuse. Just because you were like born in a racist family and families who have these different values, that doesn't mean it's okay to say those things or to act that way. But we should, I think, have some sort of patience with some people, and because it's hard to just change someone's whole belief system and the way they view their lives in like one sitting, to just like break it all down and like rebuild it all up. And that's something I think we need to work on, is having those conversations of how do we continue to implement these changes, and how do we start breaking down these way people are thinking and the way people like are being raised. And I don't know, that could probably start in school systems, talking about the histories of every of all different races, rather than just, you know, the American history, and I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that ties back into what like Clark is saying about how we need to just restructure the entire educational system, and how it needs to be like people like us on those front lines, like being teachers, teaching the history the way that it happened, not like America sugar-coated, like putting America as this fucking hero country that it's not, you know. In some ways, like, it does present opportunity, but not equally, not to everybody. And you're right about how it takes time with people. Like, that's something that I haven't been realizing. Like, I think I said something yesterday about like how I'm kind of an impatient person. Like, I want it now and I want it my way. And that's not how life happens, you know. It takes time, and you're right, people aren't going to change their views like overnight. Yeah. And that's also why it's important to continue having these conversations and stuff. And I guess maybe I should be more aware of how I come off as well, because I'm usually kind of not aggressive, but definitely like not gentle either. Like, I'm just pissed. Like, this shit's still going on, you know? And like, I don't know how you have the strength to be patient. We need to borrow some of that.
Yeah, that is something that I've definitely always thought about, is like how it's so difficult to kind of talk to people with this mindset, because it's something that they truly believe is reality, and like it's been ingrained in them since they were like children, and they truly believe that they're right. And then yeah, it's just kind of difficult to have conversations without wanting them to shut down, because a lot of times like that like they're not willing to listen, especially because of like the way things are in this country. And it's something that I've learned about America, is that it's like definitely a very greedy country. It's like built off of greed, and just like just the compared to other places in the world. It definitely sees itself as more individualistic and seeing as like it has the mindset of like I'm the only important one and everybody else like it's every man for himself, and that's the way America thinks. And so it's really difficult to kind of talk to people because a lot of times they're like, well, if they would just work hard and shut up, then they'll be fine without thinking about everything in terms of like the whole, like a big picture, and in terms of like just people in general. And like it's like a lot of times people with this mindset aren't very empathetic. Like I feel like they lack a lot of empathy. So it's kind of difficult to kind of engage in conversation with them about it when they're not willing to see the other side.
I was actually talking to Zuzu about that last night. She was like, we just need to like start over and just, just change everything. And I was like, it's gonna be way much harder than that, because the people who have the power right now are the people who have money. I was watching this one interview with Bill Gates, and he was someone asked him why didn't he run for president, and he says he doesn't need to run for president when he has money, which is, I mean, it's true. If you have all this money, you have the power to change things. You have the power to like advertise. You have the power to like buy people's trust. And going back to what Ariana was saying about like America is really individualistic. It's about protecting yourself and your family and about you getting to the top, and it doesn't matter who you crush in the process as long as you make it. And I think that's something we need to definitely change. And I was having this conversation yesterday about listening. If we all just took the time to open our minds and listen to everybody's side of the story, but all of us are like, well, this is what I think, and this is how I was raised, and this is what I believe, so this is the truth. And I think it's okay to be angry. I think it's okay to want it to happen right now, because at some point it's like, okay, how long is too long? How long do we have to wait until something does happen? We can't just slowly ease into things, because sometimes aggression is needed. This stuff is needed. Yeah.
Like, we've been easing into this shit since, like, how long do we have to appeal to white fragility or light skin fragility, like, is that a thing, light skin fragility, or is it just white fragility and people who adopt that for themselves, like, how long do we have to appeal to that? And like fucking baby people, like people are being murdered by the IPOC. Their lives are on stake, from police murdering Black men on the streets to Indigenous women. This was a recent something that came up. I mean, like, being stolen from their land. Like, it's not just the land that's being stolen, it's people, like women, actually being stolen and nobody doing anything about it. And yeah, like, how long do we have to cater to white fragility? Like, make it so gentle and soft for them to understand, like, I think that's where my anger is from, because you're right, like, when you think, like, I don't know.
This also makes me think about gender and how it's like, for a long time I've been like, let me be nice and gentle about like gender issues and what's happening with women's rights and all this, to like make it better, for the men, make it better for them to like understand, to be it's like, we were talking before, like, women are more like, they try to be more apologetic, they try to be more nice and gentle to like ease things through. But I think, yeah, it's time for that to change. There's like a lot of different things that are happening, and all we're doing is kind of just like easing into it. But sometimes it takes more than easing into it. Right now, like, what's going on kind of reminds me of like Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X, and how they had different views. How Martin Luther King was more into like you said, easing into it and like taking the time to get there, while Malcolm X is like, if they're gonna bring on violence, we bring on violence. Like, we fire with fire type of thing. So yeah, there's like different ways to do different things, but yeah.
I think a lot of people are taking on that Malcolm X viewpoint now, which is like kind of ties back to what's happening now because a lot of people are tired of having to tiptoe around the subject because like if you don't direct it addressly, people are gonna act like they don't know what you're talking about or they continue to ignore it. And so a lot of now people are like, okay, like we're done acting like it's not as big of a problem as it is. And like a lot of people I can definitely see they're taking on that Malcolm X viewpoint because I'll see a lot of people posting on Facebook like by any means necessary or that like peaceful protests in the past like obviously have not had enough of an impact that they want, and so a lot of people are tired of kind of easing into it, and so now like the riots are definitely like they just kind of hit the country full force, which is I think is like the impact that a lot of people intended.
What are your guys' views on like it's time to like speak the oppressor's language? You know, like the whole fight violence and violence, Malcolm X viewpoint. Me, I'm like, burn this shit down. Like we need a reboot. Like it it's bigger than a business being burned down. You know, it's bigger than a bank. It's bigger than a town. It's bigger. It's just bigger. And it's been years. So long.
I definitely understand both point of views of like why people like being mad that buildings are burning down. So people are like, oh well, this is not going to do anything. But I also saw this post. It's like, but then what will do something? You know, peacefully protesting hasn't done anything right now, and maybe burning some stuff down will change it. And that's kind of how I am sometimes as a person. Like when I get really mad, it's like I don't care. I'm gonna do what I have to do to get there, and if it hurts something or if like I break something in the process of it, maybe it'll be all worth it. And I think also the media is kind of showing the people who are like not taking it that serious, people who are actually there to just get some free stuff or for other purposes. They're not showing the people what the people who actually believe in the cause are actually doing, which I think is also very important to like show the true message. But somehow we always tend to find the imperfections, like, oh, look at this person, look at this, what they wrote in the comments about, let's go to the Walmart and I need a new TV, so let's go riot over there. And it makes it seem less serious. It makes it seem like, oh, they're only doing this, to get free stuff, or they're not actually, there for the cause. And I think we need to like show everybody's story, showing what's actually happening in the whole scale. Because when you look on TV, you're like, oh, these people, they don't know what they're doing. They're like just, burning stuff, and they're, not educated. And I think, yeah, I definitely, I tend to be that person who gets mad and then, destroys everything and then tries to build it back up. I even do that with my life sometimes, with like breaking things down and like ruining everything. And then it's like, okay, now let me start over and try to be this new person and try these new things.
Yeah, I think that the country definitely needs like a hard reboot, and like I feel like the best way is like finding a way for the country to not be able to continue to ignore it. And I feel like if people like do it strategically, then it can have the best impact. Like I feel like we shouldn't like attack like small businesses like that are owned by people of color, because that can have an adverse effect on them. And I also feel like that they shouldn't resort to like physical violence, like start killing people. But I also think that like attacking these big corporations definitely can have an impact, because they are part of the problem. Because like it's also about poor people in this country as well, because they are impacted by the system. And so I feel like it's kind of helping the problem. And I feel like what they're doing in the streets is like people can't ignore it. Like it's all over the news. Um, like people have no choice either but to act, like the government itself and people in power have no choice but to act or to continue to let the streets just get destroyed. And so I kind of feel like at this point it's what people feel like they have to do, because every other way that they've done it, like nothing's changed.
I also think it's important to note that when the like after the peaceful protest, yesterday, I went to the peaceful protest, and then I left with my daughter. Afterward, well, while I was leaving, I saw police gearing up in riot gear. But there's zip ties on their belt buckle, and their rubber bullets, tear gas, grenades, whatever, you know. And when I left, I was still following what the protest, like the people who were running the protest, like I was following what they were saying on their board, and they were saying that the police were starting to like taunt them, that they were like wanting, like trying to get a reaction, you know, and telling people to break up and leave, and it was time to go home. And well, people weren't ready to go home, and so they started using excessive force, the police. And that's when things go south, is when police start using excessive force, whether by tear gas, rubber bullets, you know, physical, fucking 10 cops on one guy, you know. I think you shared a video yesterday of a couple being removed from their vehicle with like that. Those images are never going to leave anybody's mind who saw that, you know. And then you think like, well, that wasn't necessary at all, you know. How do we go about defunding the militarized police, you know, putting that money somewhere to benefit people, so that it doesn't escalate to people rebelling, you know? How do we use those resources for good? I feel like I kind of derailed, but it's still all there in the loop, you know?
Yeah, kind of speaking on that, I've heard that they were planting people in like protests to kind of incite the crowd. And so I've also heard too, like they had a lot of undercover cops in the protest, like trying to rile the crowd up. So like there's also that question, like a lot of time, and I've heard that a lot of times also the looters were like there's like been white supremacists in the crowd also like looting buildings and like destroying things to make it seem like the protests themselves are violent, to make the protest look bad. And so there's also that question, like all of that. And also speaking to what you said about how to demilitarize the police, I feel like it's definitely something that we need to talk about. And I feel like some places are starting to take action against that, like certain schools are like pulling out of funding, and I think it starts with that, like with these big organizations taking a stand is what we need.
Yeah, like I said again, money has power, and if you have money, you have so much effects. And by burning down these big businesses like Target and Walmart, that forces people to go to these small businesses. That makes people have to go, you know, to their local grocery stores that's run by someone maybe of a different race. And so maybe that in a way that's helping too, burning down these big buildings. And also, like back to what you were saying about purposely implanting, like making it seem worse than it actually is, putting these people, like I was watching this video and these protesters were yelling at these white people who are like stealing stuff and doing all these things inside the store, and they're like, no, that's not what we're here for. Like you aren't part of this. You don't understand the point of this protest. And some the other people who are looting, they were using it as a resource. They were taking everything that they got, like the milk, the food, and they were giving it out. They were giving it to people who need it. They're giving to people who are getting pepper sprayed, and people aren't talking about that. They're not talking about what some of these people are using, what they found for. They're just like, oh, look at these people, and it's like, but are those people actually there for the cause? And I was watching this one video, and it was on Instagram, and it was a bunch of bricks just piled somewhere in the middle of the street, and they're like, this wasn't here before. Some police officers dropped these here, and they're doing this on purpose. They're putting these piles of bricks in here to cause more destruction, to force people to like use them. And I think people aren't talking about that. It's like it's not all like all of this some of it people are just, putting up as an act to make it seem worse. To like, oh, look at these people, they don't know what they're doing. They're like doing all these things that have no purpose. Scare people to like, for it's basically giving other people a reason to kind of defend themselves. Like, oh, look, all lives do matter. Look at these people. They obviously don't care about this cause if they're out here breaking small businesses and they're doing all this stuff. They're destroying their own communities. And it's like, well, that's not really what's happening. There's some things are being set up purposely to trigger people, to make people look down on this cause.
And what's sad is the people who already are against the cause are like buying into it so easily because they are already so not just oblivious but like ignorant. Like they don't want to know. They don't, like, it doesn't affect them. So they're like, oh yeah, so this is why, like, it justifies my belief because, like, are you getting what I'm saying? Like, can you elaborate on that a little bit more? I'm a little distracted. I feel like you guys would be able to word that a little bit better than me.
I forgot where I heard this, but it was like we tend to look for things that defend ourselves. We easily find something that supports our belief systems. And I think that's what you were saying. Like, you hear some these people like hearing these bad things are like, yep, see, I was right, I was correct. And that's how most people function. They're like, oh, okay. And then they find this one thing that defends their belief, but although there's like multiple different evidence going against it, they're like, well, there's this one thing, so it must be right.
Yeah, I've been learning a lot about that in like some of my classes that I took about like how people confirm what they already believe, and people will only look for stuff that kind of subscribes to their beliefs in general. So yeah, like that's just like what people do. And so a lot of times, like why people are so ingrained into these mindsets that they have is because they only seek out evidence supporting what they believe, because nobody wants to believe that they're wrong. And so I think just as people in general, like something that would definitely be very helpful is kind of seeking out things that counter our beliefs. Even us and like the other side, like we both need to seek out things that counter our beliefs, either like as a counter argument general from when we're like speaking with these people, like we understand their viewpoint and then know how to argue it effectively, and also so that we don't like become wrapped up in this bubble, like our own little bubble of reality. Like I feel like a lot of people are like wrapped up in their own bubbles of reality of what they think the world is like, and so that's also a big problem.
Oops. Okay. That reminds me a lot of like writing essays. When you have to like write a counter argument and then prove why that counter argument is wrong. I think by learning about other people's other sides and by trying to, understand what point they're coming from, that can in turn make your argument stronger, because you're like, okay, this is what they're probably going to say to counter my argument. So if you already know that counter argument, you can use it to strengthen your argument, to make it more clear, to make it more stronger, to bring to provide more evidence. And I think, yeah, that's what we definitely have to start listening to more people, listening to what they think. And even if it makes us mad, it's like, oh, you think like this. But if we know how to think like that and how they learned that stuff, maybe that's how we start breaking those systems and those patterns. We get to see where they learned from it, how they got to learn from it, and then we can use that information to start breaking those patterns and forming new ones.
Yeah, that's something that I kind of realized later on. Well, like after I've been arguing with somebody for a minute, I'm like, okay, I should have already like counteracted this in my beginning statement because I already knew this was gonna come up. So yeah, it's interesting because just a couple of weeks ago, people were out protesting the stay-at-home order and with weapons and places that they shouldn't have been. And it's the same people who did that were at the protest today with assault, yesterday, who also, I don't remember if I told you, they had some people had brought weapons to the, I guess they were like counter protesters, like protesting White Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, whatever picket sign they wanted that really showed who they were, with their weapon slung across their arm, fully loaded, marching around the statue that, I was thinking about it, represents colonialism and the stealing of people's cultures and identities. And I found it so, it was chilling. It was scary. But then at the end of the day, I was thinking, wow, their own hypocrisy, like this whole idea of freedom, and they're like against it. It's, the hypocrisy is so strong in some, it's mind baffling sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, America was founded on a hypocrisy. Like the Constitution said that all men are created equal while it had slaves, and while it was like literally like committing a genocide against people. And so it's only seeing freedom like fit for like if you fit a certain mold, like if you're a white man. So it's just like nothing was ever actually changed. Like they believe that just because like if we write into the law that people can't, like, you can't openly segregate, like they think that it solves the problem that has been ingrained into our society. But like yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like yeah, like the past kind of impacts the way the future is and like the present is. And a lot of people don't realize that. Like they think that those problems are just the past, like they don't exist anymore, they don't impact today, when in reality they impact everything about how we are today.
Yeah, you were saying about how the past impacts how everything is today. It's also not, even if we change the laws, I don't think that would be enough. I think it's about changing people's thought patterns and changing how we view each other and how we see each other. Because a lot of people also using this as like a race war, like white people against black people, or like Hispanics against this and that. And I don't think it should be like everybody against each other to see. I think it's something we should unite together against. And because again, like just because we're saying Black Lives Matters, we're not saying these other lives don't matter, we're just saying this is something that we need to focus on right now. This is a big issue that we need to come together and fight against. And there are multiple people who are like, who are going against like white people entirely, like, oh, every white person is bad, every white person is going to hurt us, every white person is racist. And it's not about going against white people, it's about going against the system and how we have set up these systems and how we have set up these thought patterns and how people view each other, and we have to start changing those.
I remember at some point of my schooling, one of my teachers asked me, "Oh, what college are you going to, Janine? What colleges are you applying to?" And I think I had said something like, "Oh, I was thinking about like DU, Denver University, or University of Denver, however you flip DU." And then I was saying, "Oh, maybe UNC," but I don't know. I'm really uncomfortable with. I was expecting a culture shock, and I wasn't mature yet. I wasn't ready for that and for what that entails, And I was explaining to this teacher kind of my experience with privileged white people, and she immediately got on the defensive side, and she's like, "Oh, well, not all white people are like that. My parents raised me to be charitable and be this way and be that way." And so I guess my question is, well, after that, I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. Like, I was wrong for explaining my experience with white people. like I was really confused, and I didn't know everything that I know now. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. There's ways that you don't know how to put it into words what you're feeling, because I mean, I just wasn't mature enough yet. And so I guess my question is it dangerous to kind of generalize like white people are racist, or I don't really know what I'm trying to ask, because I feel like in white culture, racism is very ingrained into it, because that's what America was built on. It was meant to benefit white people, not people of darker complected skin and people of different cultures. How do we address the people who are the white people who are offended, who say, no, I'm an ally, like how dare you say something negative about all white people when I'm your ally, you know? Like how do we, because I also made a post yesterday about white people's hypocrisy. I don't remember, I posted so many things. I should chill out maybe, but what do you think?
I think that's a good point to make, because there are some white people who don't get offended when they say all white people or this category. It's like going back to the whole Karen thing, when people are like, oh, don't call me Karen, I'm so offended, like that's so hurtful. And I think it is a tough thing, because we can't just, there is white privilege. It's like there are some white people who are like, I struggle, I'm also like poor, I'm also living in these neighborhoods, I don't experience the same privilege as these other white people. And I think, yeah, that is a tough issue to like talk about. Like, I think we should be able to like share our experience with a certain group, but then there's also that issue of like generalizations. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't think that we should like label all white people as actively racist, but I do think that it's important for them to understand what like we mean when we say that. Like we're not saying that like you are literally racist, like you literally think black people are inferior or like people of color are inferior. But it's important for them to understand that like because of the way that like the history is set up, and like how like your ancestors weren't oppressed because of their race is how you have white privilege. And that I feel like people that are true allies will know that, like, people that are just think that just not saying racist things aren't enough, don't like are kind of the ones that we're like mainly talking about, is because like they think that just because you don't say racist things or like actively believe that black people are inferior doesn't mean that you're helping the problem. And so it's important for them to understand the difference. And like if like I think it's like important to be patient with people like that, because they probably just truly don't understand like what we mean when we say those type of things. And so like maybe just kind of clarifying, like we're not saying that you like literally like you're a racist person, like you believe these things, but we're just saying that like because of the way the system is set up and like the way you benefit from it, and because of the heritage that you happen to have and the heritage that we happen to have, is just like that's just how reality is. And just kind of talk about how we can move on from there.
I mean, bias and to some degree bigotry lives inside of us at some level, inherently, whether it's who we grow up around, what stories are being told, how we internalize different identities that are put onto us, that it takes like actively working against that, relearning, being anti-racist, and understanding that it takes growth and relearning and being willing to do that work. And so I think that's kind of like my call to action for people, is to recognize their own bigotry and biases and racism, and doesn't devalue you as a person. It's just, like you said, a reality that lives. There needs to be an active thing going inside of each and one of us, reconnecting those different wires, saying like, no, this is the story that I was told, but this is the reality. This is how I better that. So, yeah.
I also
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I also think it's important to acknowledge that we all have biases, and like we can all be prejudiced, even if we can't all like be actively racist. We can all be prejudiced, and it's important for us all to check that as well. Like I know, in the Black community, a lot of people have problems with accepting the LGBTQ plus community, and so even within communities like that are oppressed, there's oppressors within that community, and so it's important to realize like we all have biases, and as people in general, we're going to assume things about others. And some like it may or may not be more or less serious, but just in general, like we all need to learn ways to how to like better address that and to move forward, and like not think that those biases are always a reality.
While you guys were talking, I was thinking also of like there are people who are putting up an act to like, you know, look like they aren't racist, or you know, to like, oh, I don't know. I think that's also another issue, is like maybe not everybody out there is truly supportive of what's going on, and they're just doing it for like the show. Some people are just down there to, you know, live stream it all. So I think that's also something we need to work on. Is I think, yeah, it's especially really important to just have these conversations everywhere across the board and see where everybody's at and see how we can all work together to move on. Because I don't think a small amount of people, like I was this is kind of off topic. It reminded me of global warming, and how there were this video was like, it's not just enough for one country to make a difference. Everybody has to be in it, and I think with this issue too, everybody has to be together to change this.
This is totally off topic, but I realized that I'm wearing a Sprite shirt, and being that this video is going to be online at some point, we are not affiliated with Sprite. This is not a commercial or an advertisement. But yeah, backpacking off of what you said, yesterday I did see that with some people who were out there who were just there like for the show, you know, like look at all these people, like, you know, kind of in a mockery. And I can't help what their internal dialogue is, or why they felt they needed to be there if they were just going to make a mockery out of it. But that's some learning that they have to do. That's something that they have to actively work on and reevaluate in themselves. And I think when we hold each other accountable for that, I think that that's also powerful, you know? Yeah, I think the few people that I saw out there who were making a mockery of it, they were definitely addressed very quickly. Like I saw this one guy run up to the police, this white guy, like trying to yell in their faces, and maybe I'm sure his pain was real, and I'm not saying that he was there to make a mockery, but like we weren't trying to do that, you know. And so a few people were like, "Come on, dude, come back to the group," you know, like that's not like this is peaceful. I'm sure he got his word at the end of the evening when the police started their shit. But I don't remember where I was going with that, but it's also good to keep each other accountable, you know? Yeah. And other countries. I mean, on a larger scale, at some point, because there's racism everywhere and oppression happening everywhere in different communities, but right now it's important that we deal with the situation at hand. In hand? On hand.
Yeah, I totally agree with the whole there are issues in other countries too, and it's important to first work on what's wrong in your country, because like, again, it'll be hypocritical of us if we're like telling, hey, you're racist and you have issues and you need to work on it when we have the same problems happening. Which brings me back to this quote I saw once, is like, if you want to make a change, you first have to start with yourself, and then you move on to your family, and then your community, and then your city, and then you expand out that way. Because if you're trying to help out everybody else, but then you have your family and friends who still believe these things and are still value these things and are still supporting these things that you're trying to go against, it's gonna, like, at some point weigh you down. It's not gonna make progress.
I think I'm gonna have to get ready to go because I gotta get my oil changed before it's too late.
Yeah, I should get going too. Sophia's probably really hungry.
But it was really good talking to you guys about this.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.